make do with where we are. And I think we just need to enforce the wearing of masks, washing of hands, and social distancing when we are out in public. That's the only way I think is possible.
Yeah, and there's a very telling title here on page 12, Joy. The experts are saying our response to the pandemic can be better. Do you agree with them? Joy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. Do you agree that our response can be better?
I agree, but with a different slant than what Mark was talking about. My strand is what we are doing now. In fact, I prefer what we are doing now. Let's kufa gari, kufa dereva. And why I say that is because it is a disease. Yeah. We cannot expect it to disappear and to go, I don't know where. We've had the flu vaccine for over 78 years. People still get HIV.
Yes.
Tuberculosis is killing more people than COVID is, and yet it is just as communicable. We need to get to a place where we agree that COVID is one of the diseases that we're dealing with as Kenyans, and just go with the flow, because we have to get to a place where the conversation comes from try not to get infected to if you get infected, this is what you do. Like the government a very effective campaign about weight and probably it is TB, but have no worry, come to an end. This is where we need to get to with COVID, because if we're sitting here waiting for COVID to be over, it will never be over. Indeed. It's a disease, it's amongst us. As long as there are people, COVID will be there. Absolutely. So what we are doing now, as far as I'm concerned, is the correct thing. What government should be laying emphasis on is our researchers coming up with either a vaccine that is good for us or medicine or something, a regimen to counter. If you get COVID, this is what you do to get better. Because we have realized a lot more people who contract COVID are getting better than are dying. So the focus shouldn't be on how many are just getting better than having them die. That is where the focus should go. But locking us up in the house until COVID goes away, it's not going away. Let's get over that part. That one, me, I'm over it.
Okay. Now, and as we figure out Joy's network, let's bring in Gloria. Gloria, I mean, the economic implications make it quite difficult to revert to the total lockdown, especially for people living below the poverty line. So when you see this resurgence and there was an easing of restrictions, which way, in your opinion, should we go?
There's a conversation around a natural selection. So what is happening really is it's a natural selection. You know, those who are made to survive, let them survive. Those who are made to die by COVID, let them die. And it's a very painful...
Wow, that sounds very harsh,
Gloria. It's very harsh. It's very harsh. And you know why I speak so bluntly about it is because also when you look at the behaviors of... This is also like, I try to compare it with HIV and AIDS, you know. We've done sensitization as a government, as a civil society. We've really gone out there, but you still get people saying, kama hiyo ndio ilikuwa iniue, hiyo basi ndio itaniua. So there's also this responsibility that we are supposed to have, the personal responsibility as Kenyans, as citizens of this country, that we try as much as possible to, you know, safeguard ourselves against the pandemic. But as Bichachi has said, we are the same people going to bars. We are the same people laughing about, you know, let me give you corona or what, you know, come I hug you and things like that. So at one point, the responsibility lies with us. And the only thing I feel a little bit bad about is that there are communities, underserved communities that are really trying to safeguard themselves, but they don't have the necessary equipment. They are not able to have the proper PPE. They are not able to have like the masks. They are not able to have sanitizers, and yet they are really trying to safeguard themselves. So for me, aside from the conversation of natural selection, I feel that the government should do a little bit more in helping these underserved communities, because for them it is not an issue of they don't want to take responsibility, but they simply cannot social distance in a house where you have 15 people living in one room, you know, so how do you social distance, you know, things like that. So I feel like the focus now should move from this, I would say, privileged people who have the equipment, They have the necessities, but they really just don't care about safeguarding themselves. And we move the focus to those who are really struggling to keep themselves safe from the pandemic, but they absolutely can't because their circumstances do not allow them to be able to afford a face mask to wear every day, to be able to even afford water to wash that face mask that they have been donated to by the civil society. So that's where I think the focus should be with government. For the other privileged who want to go to the bars and give each other coronas, I say natural selection, let them deal with the consequences.
Now, Mark, you're laughing. I'd like to bring your attention to the issue of schools, right? So we're told, of course, the reopening is not in the near future because of the resurgence. And there's a teacher who has actually passed on owing to corona. And in Mombasa, flouters of some of these restrictions are being held. Yesterday, at least 100 commuters at the Likoni Ferry Channel were arrested for failing to wear face masks. They either lacked masks or had worn them inappropriately. I think this is a positive twist. We're moving in the right direction, I think. What do you think based on these two articles?
This is one of those times where the road is written, proceed with caution.
Yeah.
Because as Joy has put it, and many share her sentiments, is many people, and this is the devil may care attitude that Kenyans are well known for. If you see how we used to cross Thika Road when it was new,
yeah,
hold hand, six of us in a family and happily laugh across the road. That's how Kenyans are. And therefore, we must balance the fact that I do not think they're getting back into curfew, but we must enforce wearing of face masks, because you can risk your life, but you have no right to risk mine when you're risking yours.
Right.
So there's got to be that balance. There's got to be that enforcement of wearing masks in public places. There's got to be that enforcement of sanitizing our hands and checking temperatures as we enter buildings. That has got to just be the reality of our day. And whereas we are thinking that somehow we are hoping we could go back to normal, I don't think, unless a miraculous vaccine is created. I think as a public, we have to go and review how Hong Kong, for example, began to live after SARS 1 and 2,
yes,
and how it became a part of life for them to be wearing masks and things like that. If you go to any airport, you'll meet a lot of Chinese people wearing their masks and taking the proper precautions. So I think this is really the world we are living in. You have to travel, you have to do business, you have to do everything. But now you have to be careful. And just to correct Joy, we didn't say that if you get HIV, this is what you must do. I believe there were ABCs.
Yeah.
There was abstaining, there was be faithful, and then there was use a condom. So there is still preventive measures to HIV. There's preventive measures to malaria. That's why we have masks, not masks, nets, sorry, for malaria, and insecticides. We need to do the same for corona. We need to protect ourselves from the disease.
Now, Joy, what Mark is saying basically is that we need to be more selfish and put self-preservation at the forefront. So go ahead. What's your take? We seem to be having a serious problem with Joy's connection. So I'll just leap over to another health story that has been making headlines, that has made headlines.
Mark is misunderstanding.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we will have to allow you to sort that out as we sort out Joy's connection. We have an interesting story on page 22 that I think every parent would want to see. Now, a boy who's 7 years old can smile after doctors reattached his hand. And this is in the Standard, page 22. Benevolent's right arm was severed by a chaff cutter as he was helping his father feed cows. Now, the father ran towards the son and saw blood flowing from his right hand, and the upper part was lying on the ground, and he just froze. So a very interesting story here described there, and then pictured here is the boy with his hand reattached, and of course this was done at Kenyatta National Hospital. So Joy, Gloria, what do you make of this? And I think it's good news because in yesterday's stories such as this, that would mean it's over. We need to find maybe an artificial limb. So when you see this, what do you think?
I read that story and I was so moved because, you know, as a parent and also some people will put blame on the parents and say, why did you send that child to do this? You know, you must safeguard your children. Some of these things you really can't, it's accidents. That's why they're called accidents. But when I read that story, one of the things that made me almost come to tears was how they elaborate how the parents handled it, you know, how the mother was in shock and didn't know what to do, ran to get the neighbor, and then the neighbor, you know, thought, let me just carry the hand. They went to hospital, and then you start asking yourself basic things like, you know, the few minutes, or was it an hour or whatever that it took them to get to hospital, that there was a hospital they could access, you know, that they were then referred to, you know, Kenyatta National Hospital, and our medics in Kenyatta National Hospital, as much as we'd like to always talk of the ills of these institutions, as much as we'd like to always focus on the negatives, you know, these government institutions are this, they're that, then now here comes a situation where we have a really successful, happy ending towards a tragic event. And I feel as though that maybe Kenyans need to celebrate a little bit of what we have in the country, of our skilled workers, of our, you know, frontline medical workers, and think about also the fact that you are somewhere and you're living in a village or wherever, can you access that medical? So for me, it was just like, especially at a time like this where we are debating on a lot of things, I really just started thinking about, you know, what can the government do more for situations like this, you know, ambulances, for instance, and things like that. So, but for me, it was, as a parent, I shivered, and then I said, you know what, thank God for our healthcare workers, because now the boy actually, you know, and hopefully that they don't have, he doesn't end up having some sort of, you know, post-trauma and things like. Hopefully he really fully recovers, but this in itself is good.
It's wonderful.
News.
Yes, the doctors say they're optimistic he will regain full function and his brain will be able to undergo, and he will adapt faster. He's also undergoing occupational therapy to ensure that he gets back to normal. Mark, as a parent, what does this stir up inside you?
First, it gives me a lot of joy to realize that the child is doing better. It gives me a lot of joy that the parents feel that their child has been saved from a difficult future. But even more, it gives me joy and pride in my country that we are able to do things for us. Yes, which is a great thing, you know, and that's just testament to how far we've come. Just the fact that these people were able to access a hospital in time. You know, there were times in this country we couldn't even get to a hospital in time for such a surgery to be done. But these are the kind of stories that we need, and I must congratulate Standard Group for actually highlighting that story and actually making it as big as it is. And those are the kind of stories that we need, because Kenya is indeed full of magical stories of heroes, everyday heroes who do amazing things for the people of this country and for the country, and we need to do more of this. I could not insist on that enough.
Okay, Joy, I'm hoping your connection has been reestablished. I think I'm told not yet, but of course that is something that we shall be hoping to get soon enough. So far from that, page 22 has more stories on health, and of course some not very good ones. We have on not good in quality, but in terms of the content. A told suspect tortured, killed in custody. This is a sad one. That is, we're told of a man whose body was found dumped in River Nzoia and was tortured. An autopsy report is saying that this is Dennis Lusava, who is 31, and at the bottom here we are having hospital to ferry body back to city after mix-up. Not very good news for the relatives and friends of this particular individual. When you see, well, there's the good positive stories that Mark has lauded, but then there's certain stories that you do not want to see. But of course, we're still living in society that has reports such as this. What do you make of these, Gloria, and what does it say about our moral fabric?
I think it speaks a lot about the public service, particularly our institutions on security. And I'm glad that actually, as much as we are highlighting those wins on the medical front or any other front in the different industries, that these stories actually come up to remind us that there's so much more to do. And as much as we are having this conversation around BBI and Chapter 13, 14, and 15 on the national security agencies, when I look at this story where you have a young man tortured and they allegedly dying in the hands of police brutality. Yes. And you know, I start then thinking to myself, those are the conversations that we should pay focus on in a time like this, that we should really try, as much as we are talking about reforms this, reforms that, building unity and what, the real thing on the ground is we have our youth being affected absolutely in ways that you cannot even sit here and discuss, you know, in a short span. And we would like to see the conversations addressing these particular issues, especially when they talk on Chapter 13, 14, and 15, and the reforms they're trying to highlight on that part with this BBI. Yes. I really would want to encourage that the youth are paying attention to these conversations and remembering, because we also have a problem with having short memories, you know, and not understanding that if we don't keep these conversations alive and push for reforms that are actually affecting the youth in a positive way, we might just get hoodwinked with other things that are being brought to the forefront.
Absolutely, and I like Mark's contribution on another story, because we've run out of time. Now, we're told that according to a FAO report, Samburu stares at a second wave of desert locusts. And of course, this speaks to food security or the lack thereof. We are keeping tabs on the swarm's migratory part, but clearly they're here. I was speaking to Gloria earlier on, and she said they never left. What do you think about this, and are we handling it the right way?
They never left. Yeah. The locusts never left.
Let's start here. The issue of locusts has been an issue in our region since the colonial period. And so the locusts really never disappear. The problem has been twofold. First is a natural problem with climate change, which caused there to be different patterns that allowed for the locusts to propagate in the first place. But the second issue is the fact that as a region, our locust preparedness, because we had spent so much time without locusts, we just simply dropped our guard. And the warning systems right from Eritrea all the way down to Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, Uganda, Tanzania, we just dropped the ball on this one. And this is really what we are paying for, the price of a dropped ball. Now, we have tried as a country in terms of containing it, but just like COVID, we do not have enough infrastructure. And in fact, it is indeed impossible to have enough infrastructure to make sure that there is no locust somewhere laying 500 eggs a day that we didn't notice. Now, the thing is the Ministry of Agriculture needs to jump in as quickly as possible and do the right thing. But on that hoodwinking comment, I will catch Gloria after this.
Okay.
Maybe tricks to add on the locusts.
Yes.
I think let's not forget that we, as much as we don't have enough resources, like Bichache says, we also had an opportunity where we could have put in place a resiliency plan when we were first dealing with it.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of agencies, international agencies, coming to say we want to help you. But we saw what happened to that. We saw the kind of corruption that was mad in terms of even the resources that were being given to us, you know, the procurement process of getting those helicopters that were doing the spraying and things like that. So again, it's one thing to say we don't have enough resources, but also look at the resources that were being given to us to deal with this. What did we do with that? And then the kind of corruption that was really, that basically actually just affected